Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's issue of Ham Talk. First of all, we'd like to, as always, thank our sponsors, the Hamsters Week Signal Group. They have been an absolute joy to have as the sponsors of our show. It's a whole new year, so we're pretty excited about all of the things that we're going to be bringing you. First, let me introduce the team. Of course, I'm KE0LMY, Sam. This is Melissa.
Hi, KI5ICQ.
This is Greg.
Howdy, and I hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's and Christmas.
And this is Andrea.
Hello, K2EZ.
We love to bring you guys really interesting things, and of course we try our best to stay on topic, even though certain members of the team like to go wandering off sometimes. Greg. So if we happen to wander off the path, just bear with us. We have some really great segments for you this month. Greg is going to talk a little bit about BALUNS. Andrea is going to talk a little bit about the EME contest. Melissa's got a great shack, or maybe even two if we can squeeze it in. And I will be talking about the latest edition of the Local Emergency Operations Plan and how our ARES group is working into Camden County this month. So, Greg, I guess we'll start with you this time.
Well, I hope everybody had a good Christmas and Happy New Year. Been kind of chaotic and active around here and everything, but I lowered my antennas on my tower. I've got that razor that comes down, made a repair, sent them back up to tower, and they got about 20 feet, and all of a sudden there was a loud pop, bang, and cable started coming towards my head. It came to a stop. We finally got the replacement parts in, and once we got the new cable on it and the pulley and everything and could put load on it, we were able to safely climb and see why it jammed. And all of that because a wheel came loose and it cocked, and it caught on the seam going up the Roan 45 tower. So let that be a lesson when your winch suddenly goes, it's not a dead battery. Because what ended up happening, the stupid thing is, when the winch slowed way down when it couldn't move anything anymore, I thought the battery's dying, so I hit the button harder trying to get it up as high as possible, and the next thing I know, parts are coming down.
Don't do what Greg did. That's the first piece of advice for 2022.
On that. So anyway, that's all the excitement I've had in the last couple of weeks.
All right, Andrea, we know you've had a lot of excitement. Some of it has not been good, but you want to give us an update on how things have been going for you?
Well, Happy New Year first to everyone, and I hope everyone had some good holidays. Oh, I don't know where to start. Non-amateur radio related, I managed to crack a few ribs, and I tell people that's from a drunken driving accident, though I didn't damage my car nor get a DUI because I was smart. See, I knew I shouldn't be driving, but so I got a room around the corner. But it's sort of like that movie Final Destination. They don't get on the airplane, but the plane crashes, so they start dying. So I didn't drive home, so I didn't get in that drunk driving accident. But in the morning, I slipped in the bathtub in the room I got. So that's been a pain in the side. Fortunately getting better. And in other amateur radio related news, in preparing for the January VHF contest, I had to replace the matching section on my 2-meter Yagi at the top because it gets hit by branches regularly. And I found that the the set screws were all seized, and I had to do it. Turned into a much bigger project involving a torch, and I managed to burn my face not once but twice in the same spot, because after I burned myself there, torch off, but it was still hot, I shifted to finish what I was doing and put the torch right back. So that's been my my past couple weeks here.
You know, one
that
thing
would
I've
be
got to
accident
say,
prone.
hanging out with Andrea is always exciting.
And Miss Melissa, what have you been up to?
My life seems quite boring compared to y'all's. Oh my gosh. Yeah, with all the seasonal gatherings and preparing and cleaning up after, those kind of events, throwing in at least 2 camping trips, prep and clean up afterwards. I'm actually even thinking we had 3 camping trips. So yeah. Other than that, no, just busy work, just keeping me busy.
And as for me, well, here at the EMA, we actually have an antenna down on the roof right now because we had some storms here in December, and it moved the temporary mounting of our Yagi that we have up on the roof. So we'll be having our Aries team out here to fix that. And I've already told the EC, I said, that's the emergency coordinator for anybody who's not familiar, but I've already told them we will be putting a permanent mount up there this time, because cinder blocks do not count as a mount for an antenna.
No, not in wind.
So with all of the wind and the ice and the snow and the craziness that's been going on here in Missouri, I said it's time to get it a more permanent mount. So that will be in the upcoming months. One of the segments that I will be submitting to Greg is our guys fixing and repairing the antenna mount for the EMA. As of right now, the best thing they told me to do was don't transmit on that radio. So I told them I wouldn't touch it. So that's the excitement that's been going on here. Other than that, I think that we're pretty much ready to jump right into our segments. So as we've already said, balance for Greg, contest for Andrea, Melissa's got a shack, and I will be submitting something to do with the LEOP and how we're incorporating our Aries. So, Greg, if you'll take it away.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go into discussion on balance today, what they are, and why you want to put them on your Yagi. All right, well, let's go ahead and start this discussion with how to properly pronounce it. Okay, I've heard them called BALUNS, and I've heard them called things that I can't even fathom how in the world they managed to come up with that pronunciation based on the spelling. So, but they do, and they have, and I've heard it. Simply put, it is balanced to unbalanced. Balanced to unbalanced. Balun. Okay? That's our English lesson for today. Now, in the world of amateur radio, there is no other part that's probably less attractive and sexy to go out and buy for your shack than a balun. There's nothing about it that encourages you to say, I want a balun on my shack. All right. But it's probably next to your feed line, one of the most important pieces of equipment to add to your antenna system. All right. Especially if you'd like to have happy neighbors, an antenna that's performing to its full capability, and low noise. There are many, many different types of baluns, and some incorporate impedance transformation too. And it's this area that causes a lot of confusion to people. 50 ohm direct feed antennas need a 1-to-1 balanced to unbalanced transformer. However, other types of antennas need transforming from 12.5 ohms to 50 ohms and up, 200 ohms to 50 ohms, for example. And these types need to have the impedance to be transformed as well as the balancing effect. So there you need an impedance balun. Coax is a wonderful, wonderful product. Okay, when I say coax, I'm talking about RG8, LMR 400, LMR 600, hardline, etc. Okay, it's an invention that has allowed the feeding of antennas through a manner of different substances, conditions, and places a balanced feed line simply cannot get. However, there are issues that need to be overcome when feeding a balanced antenna with coax. It's become commonplace that the amateur radio and even commercial users use coax to feed antennas due to the convenience of so doing. So much, however, that modern commercial transceivers have an unbalanced output designed to feed and receive directly from coax cable. Coax can be fed through the walls, under the ground, up the side of our towers, or on metal poles without any drastic effect on the antenna or its tuning, or does it? The best way to feed most antennas is with a balanced feeder. The reason being, most antennas, including Yagis, which are the topic of our discussion, are balanced antennas. If we feed a balanced antenna with an unbalanced feed line, issues occur at the feed point, namely common mode currents, which appear as a result of the balanced and unbalanced mismatch. These currents travel back down your coax and radiate. Thus, the coax becomes part of our antenna system and is radiating, which pisses off your neighbors, creates masked SWR issues. So you could actually have, if you got common mode currents traveling back down, you might have a 1 to 5 SWR, but it's masking it and showing it as a 1.2 or 1.3. Okay. So it can be deceptive in several ways. We need the feed line to be in as much open space as possible when it's balanced. And so, I mean, most people can understand why window line is just not mainstream anymore. It is all about coax. Let's take a look at image number 1 here. We can see a nice, clean, and balanced distribution of current through the dipole itself, with no radiation within the feed line. This represents a scenario where a perfect balun is placed at the feed point, or the antenna is fed with a balanced line feeder. All right, now let's look at the second image. A different story if the feed point is not balanced. This shows distortion within the dipole if coax is connected and a balun is not installed. This may not impact vertical or monopole antennas so much, but for directional antennas such as a Yagi, this is disastrous. All right, the first thing we're going to do is take a look at this chart of this as a typical Yagi antenna. All right, you're going to see 2 patterns on here. In red, that's a 50 ohm balanced connection, and the black is a non-balanced, no balun provided connection to the antenna. All right. If you look at it with the balun, what you've got is very clean lines. You've got a good lobe and a good pattern to the antenna. So you're maximizing your energy in the direction you want to maximize it in. And you've got few, if any, spurious radiation coming off the rear of the antenna or the feed line. So you've got a cleaner signal, and you're not splattering, you're not injecting common mode currents out there, you're not interfering with your neighbor's television and everything. Now let's look at the black lines. Those are no balun provided. It's a mismatched, unbalanced to balanced antenna. All right. So what you're seeing here is, number 1, the main lobe is distorted. You've got some side lobes that are coming out. Your pattern's distorted by the feed line itself. Then if you look at it, you've got a lot of spurious radiation coming off the back of the antenna area and the feed line. That's mostly your feed line radiating, okay? Creating common mode currents, creating interference to your neighbors, and picking up and creating noise on your receive side that you don't need, okay? So as you can see from this illustration, there's a big benefit to the balun on your antenna. Balun that I like and I recommend is the ferrite core balun. It's a piece of coax which has ferrite cores tightly fitted around the outer sleeve of the coax, and it's normally sealed. The biggest advantage to this and why I like this style of balun is you can get it right up to within a centimeter of the feed point of your antenna, which means that you are not having any radiating coax or interfering coax in the system. So that's why it's my favorite balun. So to recap this, I hope this is designed to encourage you to go out and do some research and learn about baluns and the effect that they have on your antennas and everything. But I'll leave you with this. Hopefully this has gotten you to understand that if you don't have a balun on your Yagi antenna, the question is, why not? All right, well, let's go back to the show now.
Well, Greg, I think that if I'm missing baluns off of the Yagi on top of the roof here, that is going to be an addition that Aries is going to be making when they go to put that antenna back up. I appreciate that. And now we'll roll right into Andrea's segment, EME contest. I don't even know what that is.
Thank you, Sam. EME is for Earth, Moon, Earth. In other words, moon bounce. And I had the pleasure of operating at K5QE's massive EME station. He has some of the biggest EME antennas in the United States. And the contest, well, only operated when the moon was visible. So that enforced a 12-hour break in the middle of the contest. And so let's go look at that video, and I'll tell you about what we did in the contest and some general information about Earth, Moon, Earth operation. Today, we are talking about Earth, Moon, Earth communications, EME for short, also known as moon bounce. As the name infers, this involves bouncing your signal off the moon so that it can be received at some distant place on the planet. Amateur radio operators use all amateur bands from 6 meters and up in frequency. The most popular bands used are 6 meter, 70 centimeter, and 23 centimeters. Pretty much any two places on the planet that can see the moon at the same time are able to work each other with this mode of communications. EME, however, is perhaps one of the most technically challenging modes in amateur radio because at 250,000 miles to the moon and the same distance back to the Earth, the path loss eats up most of your signal. So EME is known for the need to have very large antennas, very high power to be successful at it. However, with the advent of digital modes, it is quite possible to do EME communications with as little as a very large single 2-meter Yagi, or similar on 70 centimeters, or on 1.2 gigahertz, a 7-foot to 10-foot folding umbrella dish could be sufficient. these small stations aren't going to be contacting another small station, but they can certainly contact larger stations like the one where I operated during this past EME contest, and that's K5QE, Kilo 5 Quebec Echo, who has one of the biggest EME stations in the United States. This is a photo of Marshall's 2-meter EME array, which consists of 8 very long 2-meter Yagis. Similarly, he has 8 Yagis in his 1¼ meter array. This band is not as popular because much of the world does not have access to this band. And on 70 centimeters, he doubles the number of Yagis to 16. The daytime photos were taken waiting for moonrise, so we're pointing to the horizon. This photo at nighttime shows the 70 centimeter array pointed nearly vertical when the moon was high in the sky. Each of the operator stations looked something like this, which is the 2-meter operating position. On the left-hand monitor, we have our logging software and an EME chat window open, which allows us to arrange skeds and advertise the fact that we are operating and calling CQ. On the right-hand monitor, we have the rotator control software that controls both the elevation and azimuth of the antenna, and that pretty much runs automatically in the background and we don't have to worry about it. We also have the WSJT-X window open. The main digital mode we operated was JT65B. JT65B is similar to FT8 in operation. However, it does not automatically sequence, and it uses 1-minute sequences instead of 15 seconds. The exchange messages also differ from FT8. In response to our CQ, the other station will send back their grid. To that, we respond with a signal report, which is always OOO. They send back to us a RO. We send a RRR, and then we exchange 7 threes. In some cases, if we have another station calling us, we might skip sending the 73 at our end. But they know because we've started to work somebody else that the contact is complete. I hope you've enjoyed our brief little look at EME communications today. This is Kilo 2 Echo Zulu, roving reporter for Ham Talk.
Melissa, not only do you have a shack for us this month, but as I understand it, you have some questions for the group.
Yes, we have questions. Do you want to hit those questions first?
Yeah, let's do the questions first.
Okay. All right. This is regarding, just so everybody's on the same page here, single sideband on 6 meters through 1296 and up. So this is in response to a short article N5XO wrote a couple of months ago. David Rice asks, are M2HO loops good for horizontal omni antennas on 2 meters?
Yes and no. If you're looking for a dummy load, they're right there. Out of the antennas, they will work and they go, but they're not the highest gain antennas that you can get. I would really recommend to anybody that you either go with the big wheel for an omnidirectional on there, or get with Tom Haddon, K5VH, and he manufactures the antennas that I use, and they're outstanding performers. I've got 2 of them stacked on my tower at 80 feet, and I talk an average of 230, 240 miles every single day on 2 meters with those. And then when I switch to the Yagis, of course, it gets more fun. but for an omnidirectional, they're good performing. I tried the M squares. I've been a big fan of M square antennas for decades, and I've run a bunch of their Yagis over the years, and in fact, dating back to when they were KLM. And so the first antennas I got were those loops, and I was extremely disappointed in them. It's one of the few products that M square, I think, falls short on. Now tell me I'm wrong, Andrea.
I don't have much to add there. I've used HO loops, and for not real distant horizontal polarization, particularly if you can stack a couple, they'll work. But my biggest complaint about the HO loops is they're difficult to tune. And they're not just a matter of hook it up. You've got 3 things you can adjust on them, so you kind of go crazy. So that's my only complaint on those, but they do work, and some people like them.
Now, one thing I'll give them, they're probably the most durable omnidirectional sideband antenna out there. And so for mobile use, they have a good place, because they can kind of take mobile beatings and stuff, where the K5VH antennas are a little fragile, and the big wheel's really fragile. But the gain performance is great with them. Hope we answered your questions, David.
Okay. Another question from him. The radio I have that supports SSB above 6 meters is a QRP radio with 10 watts. Played around with it over the years on 6 meter using a horizontal dipole. It kind of lacks range at 10 watts. Is 50 to 100 watt a noticeable improvement on 2 meters and up, or do you need more?
From 10 watts to 50 and 100 is going to be a very noticeable difference. But the first thing you need to get rid of is the dipole. I mean, dipole in 6 meters is a weak performer, but 100 watts on 6 meters with a small Yagi 3 or 5 element will perform really well. And I can see Andrea's disagreeing with me.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing. The dipole, if you've got 6 meter E-skip, you can work some distance stations, but Yagi is definitely much better on that band, and they're not too crazy large. I agree with you, Greg, that power wise, going from 5 watts or 15 watts up to 100 watts is going to be a quite noticeable improvement. I mean, doubling the power gives you 3 dB, and I'll take 3 dB any day in my contest setup. And so going to 4 times 6 dB, grabbing 10 dB, going from 10 watts to 100, that is definitely a big plus. Certainly on 2 meters, you're going to see that for tropospheric propagation. Not so much, if you got a good antenna, not so much for direct wave line of sight, but tropospheric, definitely 100 watts opens up quite a bit more. And I bet you're thinking, Greg, that even a kilowatt's better, and I'd agree with that.
Well, I'm Tim Allen of ham radio, more power on that. I think on 2 meters, if you're going to do any kind of serious DXing and operating, 200 watts and up is almost a necessity. 100 on 6 meters, you can do a lot with 100 watts.
Yeah.
When the band opens, the band's open on there. So if you've got, a 3-5 element, even a cheap little Cushcraft or something like that, they perform really well on 6 meters with 100 watts.
Yeah. I just want to add, you mentioned 200 watts as a threshold, but there's one of the common brick amps is 160 watts, and that will get you pretty much what 200 watts will. And with 160 watts in my mobile, I've worked, several hundred miles under regular conditions, and then under enhanced conditions. I've worked from Texas to Florida and to Michigan on tropospheric propagation.
I agree.
Cool. Okay, we have another question from Tom, and he says, after hearing guest speaker N5XO at a club meeting, I found I agreed with him for the need and importance of 2 meter simplex versus being a repeater operator. Building my station for simplex operation, I purchased a 200 watt TE amp, and it came with a receive preamp. I was excited about that, as it is supposed to add 15 dB gain to my receive station. However, the problem I'm seeing is when I'm talking to a station and turn on the preamp, it jumps my S meter up 3 to 4 S units, but I cannot see that the signal is any stronger. And many times the noise actually makes hearing the station harder, or it becomes very distorted. What am I doing wrong?
Well, you've got to have a low noise preamp to begin with, or else you're going to be increasing the noise floor going to your radio. And this is an area that I'm kind of a firm believer in. Preamp should be up on top of the tower at the antenna. The whole point to a preamp, most of the time, there are exceptions, is to boost the signal to overcome the losses in your feed line. So if you've got a 1 dB signal at your antenna and you've got 3 dBs loss in your feed line, you ain't got a signal coming down to your radio. If you got a preamp at your radio site, what are you boosting? So that's my opinion. I think a preamp on the brick amps is useless. Now, I will make an exception on that with mobile. Okay, go ahead, Andrea. I know I'm wrong.
I agree. There are very limited benefit in amplifier. The only time that they can benefit you is if they have a superior noise figure than your radio has. And a little technical note here, most radios have front end filtering, and that filtering does have what's known as insertion loss. And it's like that, maybe a dB or so for that filtering. But the benefit of that filtering is it filters out the stuff that's adjacent band that would otherwise overload the front end of your receiver. A preamp doesn't suffer that front end filtering loss. But the downside is if there is something really strong nearby and you turn on the preamp, then the preamp's overloaded and you're going to be in trouble, and the signal actually gets worse. What he was describing in his question is a classic case, not of that, but of just the noise figure not being that good on the preamp. And consequently, it increases the gain of the signal, but it doesn't help you any because you pick up a little bit of noise. And that effective noise figure could go downhill really bad if somebody, a commercial vehicle or something, police or something, transmitter or repeater, even a fair distance, not real far, but just a fair distance away could tend to desensitize that preamp a little bit. So biggest advantage, like Greg said, for preamp is up on the tower. Of course, you can put the whole amplifier up on the tower in a box, and then the preamp in that combination actually is doing work for you.
Yeah, but now you got a power issue getting up there. So, and I don't mean RF power, I mean DC power. One other thing I'll throw in that when you're doing a mass mounted preamp it's important to properly calibrate that too. If you've got 3 dB loss and you've got the preamp cranked at 15 dB, you're providing so much gain that you're actually going to desense your receiver on the radio, and you're going to hear worse, even though you've got stronger signals coming in. So it's a balancing act. Everything has to match.
Yeah. Andrea?
Along the same lines there. You don't want too much gain, and frequently the low noise figure preamps don't have as much gain as cheap. Gain is cheap. Noise figure isn't cheap. And so a good noise figure typically has lower gain on it. And you really don't need the gain. You just need enough gain such that you're benefiting from that lower noise figure by boosting the signal to above the noise figure of your receiver. But
how much work can the filters on the radio do to help with that by the time it gets to the receiver?
They only help with descents or out of band signals. So they actually hurt your noise figure.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Of course, being desensed hurts your noise figure a whole lot more than a little bit of filtering front end. And, you know, it may be only a dB, but it's generally, it's not that much. And I'll say most modern receivers don't have as much front end filtering as they used to have in the past.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right. Well, thus ends the questions for this month. So we can continue on to the review. We're going to have a review of the remote hamshack of W5SLS. So let's go there now.
Let me start with the danger of towers, not just to the climbers, but your support team, any bystanders, and to the property itself. A little mistake can have disastrous impacts on life and or property. So here we present our beloved Elmer and Ham Talk host N5XO's tower. When this tower was put up, several mistakes were made. Because a mast had been in use for almost 2 decades and had held up quite well in heavy winds in the past, people became complacent. The mast was overloaded with the H-frame and antennas, with a large wind load surface now presenting. Combine that with the mistake of using a power nut driver on the thrust bearing bolts. One bolt put a tiny dimple into the mast, creating a weak point. Combine all the above with 60 to 70 mile an hour gusts when a recent front moved into Texas, and it all combined to bring down the antennas. It was a perfect storm because without all 3 of those factors, most likely those antennas would have remained in the air with no issues. So the mast collapses on Tower 1. The antennas fall in a fast swinging arc, and due to the mast height, a tall G7 144, the falling antennas sliced through the antennas on tower number 2 like a hot butter knife, 30 feet away, slicing up a 55 element, 23 centimeter antenna, a 432 Yagi, and a 220 Yagi in half. In total, N5XO lost 9 antennas. Thus ends the lesson on becoming complacent about your towers, tower climbing, and construction safety, period. Over the next few shows, we will address safe tower construction, climbing and maintenance, as well as proper mast ratings, the tools to be used, etc. Let's move to some positive fun in Show Us Your Shack. David, NB5K, took a nice hike and had his HT along. He used high gain HT antennas and altitude to make some fantastic contacts while hiking the Guadalupe Mountains National Park. By mountain topping, he was able to make one confirmed contact 105 miles away with his HT on FM 2 meter simplex. He writes, his only confirmed contact was with KB5MC in Roswell. Other traffic would come and go or have just hints of modulation, unable to copy the call sign location or much of anything. My guess is they were truckers way south on IH-20 or IH-10. They could hear me, but I couldn't hear them with any reliability. Perhaps for a brief moment, they were on a hill, or the signal would reflect or refract differently off some random surface they were driving near. I used a Yaesu FT4X with an Aubrey 72 centimeter, 28.3 inch antenna. The contact with KB5MC was recorded on my iPhone. I picked up a postcard and I will send it to him as a QSL card. The hike was 8.3 miles and took about 6 hours round trip. The trailhead was 5,840 feet and the summit was 8,751 feet. We gained almost 3,000 feet. Let's move on to the remote station of Scott, W5SLS. What he is able to do remotely from his tablet or smartphone is nothing short of amazing. It's incredible how much control Scott has remotely, operating as if he were there, working HF or VHF contacts, switching bands, antennas, and activating amps all from his cell phone. He puts this functionality to good use by being able to listen and operate throughout the day while working or during travel, etc. He also operates remotely from home with equipment and antennas located in other locations due to some antenna restrictions at home, and we won't say by who. Here, Scott is operating his station remotely from his home office. Some of the equipment he's operating on is located within his home, and some of it is located at a fellow hams site and also from a high-rise tower site. This system enables Scott to put up the antennas and the equipment to maximize the locations and enhance his at-home shack operation. This pic shows the software he can access from his remote home station, smartphone, or tablet, allowing him to change bands, antennas, etc. His full station provides total operation from 160 meters through 23 centimeters. He's not only remote operating his multiple flex radios, but several ICOMs as well. Scott has the ability to turn on and be notified of the status of his amps, status of SRW, power out, etc., giving him the details he requires to operate safely. One of his remote stations, a flex connected to a 5-band down east microwave transverter. He can switch bands, antennas, power, etc., allowing 6 meters through 23 cm operation. In the next two photos, yet another remote station location. This one is located at another hams QTH who does not have the HOA wife antenna restrictions. Here you see not only the communications, but amp and power meters all presenting full video remote. This is the remote relay module to allow him to switch antennas, remote amps, etc. on. In the very near future, we'll have Scott on the show to give us a full live demo of his remote operating capabilities. We are really excited for everybody to see this. And that's a wrap for Show Us Your Shack.
Melissa, that was excellent. I really appreciate the people who send you the pictures and everything. And I actually thought that at some point, Greg might grab the picture of my shack, which I just shared up on Facebook not too long ago. My husband repainted it to be black and yellow because we take Buzzer home. He's the EMA's mascot, and he loved it so much he painted the entire shack black and yellow. So at some point, I think we're going to have to throw mine up there now that he's done all of this work on it. And,
well, take
really
a couple more pictures and send them to me. We'll fit them in there.
So, but in the long and short of it is 2022 has brought us a lot of opportunities that we're looking to expand on. I know every one of us has got either a goal in mind that we intend on accomplishing during this year, and we want to take you guys along with us for these rides and this journey that we're on. Greg, a goal you have maybe for this year?
Mine is, as usual, promoting and encouraging weak signal activity on VHF, UHF, and building a quality station.
Excellent.
You know, I see a lot of people get themselves frustrated, and if they just did a couple little steps and details, they wouldn't have that frustration. So,
and I think with the things that you teach them on this radio show, I think that's going to help a lot of people. Andrea, one of your goals for this year?
That's tough. I'm not a person that ever sets New Year's resolutions or goals, but I do have a general objective that I want to get out.
Not to hurt yourself anymore?
No, I'll keep working on that. But let's see. I do intend to get out to some more events. So looking forward to Dayton or Hamvention be back, and maybe Hamcation, and some VHF conferences if they come about, and microwave update things that I haven't caught for a couple of years now. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. Also, I'm looking forward to not amateur radio related, but playing some softball again, you know, my teams, and since I've started doing stand-up, do some more stand-up comedy. So
there you go.
I love it.
I was thinking it'd be a lot of fun for the Ham Talk crew to do a road trip to Dayton, but my wife advised me that for our 40th wedding anniversary, we're not going to a ham convention.
I don't.
We have done that twice now, gone to a ham
you.
convention during an anniversary.
Melissa, I know what your goal is, but go ahead, say what your goal is.
Yeah, Greg kind of alluded to that when he's talking about making a quality ham station, and it's just taking the necessary steps, and for me, it's baby steps. And hopefully I can get him or some other people over to my house to help me get that accomplished. But I think I would say that Greg is working on this as well. And that is that, I mean, for me, you know, we're fairly new on this homestead here, and I'm going to be getting my gardens going, and I got my chickens going, and my bees are started. So just a handful of projects that I'm hoping that it's going to be a productive year.
Awesome. And for me, I have kind of let my damn amateur radio club, my club, fall to the wayside because of all the stress of getting into being the director of emergency management. So my goal is to get our special events back on track, because a lot of people get really excited when we activate dams. So I think that's going to be one of the goals, is to get back on track with the dams we have here in Missouri. And if we end up being able to do a trip with you guys to Hamvention or whatever, try and drop by and activate a dam in that area too, because that would be a huge goal for our club. So that's kind of what I got on my year-long plan. So
that sounds like a lot of fun.
And just for the people who might not know, what's a dam?
So dams are man-made, in this case man-made, because we're not activating beaver dams here, people, but dams are man-made. Stop laughing. These are man-made dams that do things like generate power. The Truman Dam that we have here in Warsaw, Missouri, Bagnell Dam, which is in Miller County, these are all power generating dams. Usually there is a state park or a park somewhere close by, so you might have gotten wind of them through the Parks on the Air section. But with what we've done so far, and from what I've heard so far, we're the only club that's actually activating the dam itself. So it was pretty exciting because the first year we got the Army Corps to clear us to do Truman Dam during their 40th anniversary of the completion of the dam. So that was one of the very first times that the club ever activated. It was a lot of fun. And we have
by activating, you mean operating from the dam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not actually going in and opening the gates, but
That would actually be kind of fun to join you, have the hamster group do something similar. I mean, we've got Medina Lake Dam and we've got Canyon Lake Dam, two major dams here. And then we've got hundreds of smaller dams and stuff.
Exactly.
So there could be a lot of fun doing that. And it'd be fun to work multiple dams around the country.
And do all kinds of joint operations, because our call sign for dark is KE0TGG, Kilo Echo Zero Tango Golf Golf. And we can lend that out to anybody who wants to operate from one of the dams. So that's kind of one of the big goals, I think, to try and get me away from work. Give me something other than work to think about. I would love that.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yeah, you could stand to work a little bit less.
I know, right? So you guys have now heard what our goals are and what our hopes are for this year. We would love to hear from you. So as usual, Greg will forget to link all of the emails and all of the websites and all of the things that I say he's going to link down in the description. He'll forget. So make sure you tell him to do that.
I do put them in the video.
You need to make them clickable. See, he's going to make that improvement. But we want to hear from you as well. What is your goal? Both give us one of your amateur radio goals and then give us one of your non-amateur radio goals down in the comments below. And then we'll have Melissa run over, review whatever ones we get, and it'll give us a chance to, again, interact with you. We want to interact with you. All right, guys, final thoughts?
I think that sounds great. I'm actually excited about the new year. We had time to kind of work the kinks out, and I think 2022 is going to be a great year for Ham Talk, the hamster group, and hopefully life in general, because I'm kind of tired of the last 2 years.
And Andrea, final thoughts?
I hate to voice the final thought that runs through my head, where I'm thinking, hopefully a year from now, we're not saying, boy, I wish it was 2021 again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I saw a meme the other day that sat there and said 2021 was the worst year on Earth, or held the record for the worst year on Earth. And in 2022 said, here, hold my beer.
Oh, no. No, I refuse. No. Miss Melissa, final thoughts?
Well, all I say is send us your shack pictures or your antenna pictures. Send those in so we can show them.
Melissa loves reviewing the shacks. I think it's probably one of the happiest things that she can take part in.
Right.
And my final thought is we just like to hear from you guys. So Greg has learned, I guess, a new way to post our videos so we can get out to more people. We really want to hear from you, because your questions and your comments is a lot of what drives what we put into this show. Do you like hearing about Andrea's adventures on the road? Do you like hearing about the emergency part and the stuff that I do here with our amateurs with the EMA? Do you like hearing about Greg and the dinosaur crew? Anyway. And no, Melissa did not draw those pictures of those horses behind her. I asked because they're very pretty. But no, she is not an artist on top of everything else. So if you do have a curiosity about something that we do, or you would like us to cover something that we haven't yet, I mean, give us the recommendations. We would love to hear from you and what you want to hear. We want to be a little bit different from every other ham radio show that's on YouTube and every other ham radio show that you listen to. If it's just because we're hometown, we're not professionals, and we're just doing this because we enjoy doing it, hey, the more power to us. So once more, we'd like to thank the Hamsters Week Signal Group for being the sponsor of our show. We really appreciate all of the time and effort that the group invests into us and all of the support that they give to us. Thank you to Greg for going through meticulously changing and cutting and making this show the best version that it can be by the time it hits YouTube. It takes a long time to do that, and he squeezes it into his busy schedule. We really appreciate that. Thank you, Melissa and Andrea, because you take the time to do what you do for us. So we will say 73 to everybody, and we'll see you next month.
73s.
7-3.